Hello students, welcome to this video. And in this video, we continue discussing the play The Duchess of Malfi written by John Webster. And in this video, we'll be discussing Act 1, Scene 2. So what I'll recommend that, you just go through the last 4 or 5 minutes of the previous video before you begin this video. Essentially, what happened in the previous scene was that we got introduced to the main characters of the play, mainly Antonio, Bossola, and the Cardinal. Okay, so we were introduced to these three main characters. Of course, Delio is also there. But anyway, I urge you to look at that before watching this video. So let us begin. Now, what happens is the setting is the same. Okay, Antonio and Delio are discussing, are having a friendly chat over, about many things, mainly about Antonio's visit to France, and now the conversation continues. But then their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of. So Antonio and Delio continue discussing. They are talking. Okay, they continue their discussion, their friendly chat. But their talk is. Actually, Antonio is going to tell Delio about the courtiers in Antonio's in his household, in his palace. So, which means that in the palace of the Duchess of Malfi, whoever has come, you tell her. Why don't you tell me more about the courtiers here? That is what Delio asks, and their conversation is interrupted. And ultimately, we are going to see. Antonio will tell Delio about all the courtiers, and we'll have a very we'll get a character sketch of certain people by the end of this scene. Okay, so by another thing before we proceed any further, Act 1, Scene 2 is a pretty long act. So we'll not be able to cover everything in this video. Probably we may need either one more video, or maybe Act 1, Scene 2 may need a total of 3 videos. We'll see how much we can cover in this. So the Act 1, Scene 2 continues where Act 1, Scene 1 stopped. Okay, there is no break at all. In fact, it's a continuous action. Antonio and Delio continue talking, and their conversation is disturbed by the arrival of Ferdinand arrives. The Duke Ferdinand arrives. Ferdinand is the Duke of Calabria, and he is accompanied by Castruccio. Let me introduce these people to you. Castruccio, Castruccio, Silvio, Silvio, Rodrigo, Roderigo, Rodrigo, and Grisolan. Okay, and these are the courtiers who accompany Duke Ferdinand. Okay, Duke Ferdinand is the Duchess's brother, and he is the Duke of. So you've got introduced one more character, Calabria. Okay, he's the Duke of Calabria. Again, that's in Italy. Now, the point is this. Okay, and actually, what Duke Ferdinand asks is, he was asking about a sporting event. Okay, so the sporting event that they talk about is, he asks Silvio and other people, who took the ring. That is the question that he asks. Who took the ring? So, and then the answer comes that it is revealed that Antonio took the ring the most. Okay, Antonio took the ring the most, the most number of times. Now, what is this ring? Taking the ring is actually a jousting event, a jousting contest. Now, what's a jousting contest? So it was, let me tell you what this thing exactly is, what is jousting, and what this thing exactly is. This contest involved being on horseback. So a rider had to be on horse, okay, ride a horse, and the person had to sit on the horse with a lance. Now, what is a lance? A lance is a long weapon. It will be like something like this. On this lance, on the tip of the lance, you had to on the tip of this lance, you had to balance a ring while riding the horse. Okay, so this is the contest that was held, and Antonio did very well in that contest. So the Duke asks who took the ring, and it's actually a jousting contest. And what the answer is, Antonio took the ring the most. So the Duke is impressed, and the Duke presents Antonio. He presents a jewel. Okay, he presents a jewel to Antonio, and he says, "Give him the jewel." And what happens is immediately he wonders, "Oh, this is just a sporting event. When am I going to see action?" So the Duke wonders when he's going to see action. When am I going to see the real action? I don't want to see just these jousting events and all that. Castruccio says something. So this is the Castruccio is trying to impress the Duke, and he says, "Sir, you should never. Yeah, an actual prince should never indulge in. It is not fitting for a person like you, a person of such a high rank, should never see action, should never be involved directly in war." So he says, someone like someone of your rank, that is a duke or a prince, okay, should not involve directly in war, in battle. Should not get involved directly in battle. Okay, that is, you should not go and fight. This is so immediately the Duke is a bit irritated. The Duke is irritated by this comment, and then he says, "Okay, ultimately you are asking me to delegate. What is delegation? That is, someone will give you a job and then you give it to someone else. That is delegation. Some sort of outsourcing. Of course, delegation is usually done by leaders. Okay, delegation is when you delegate. That is the verb. Delegation is done by leaders, and they say, look, this is the task, you do this, and this part of the task you do. So they'll give it to their juniors, and immediately he says, look, just a minute, yeah, just a second. And immediately he says, okay, if I'm going to delegate action, if I'm going to delegate war, or if I'm going to delegate being in a battle, what else do I delegate, Castruccio? Come on, tell me, what else do I do? Do I start delegating, activities like sleeping and eating? Why not do I do that? So what he means is, what about sleeping and eating? Instead of me, let someone else sleep. Instead of me, let someone else eat. That will be great. So what else should I delegate? So he's sort of mocking him. He mocks Castruccio for making this comment. And then there is a discussion about the subject matter goes to Castruccio's wife, Julia. The discussion moves to Castruccio's wife, Julia. Now, there is a small, okay. Now, why should it move to Castruccio's wife, Julia? Actually, Ferdinand is mocking Castruccio. He's continuing that and using Castruccio's wife, Julia, to mock Castruccio, to make fun of. Mocking means to make fun of Castruccio. And then he says, what were you? And actually, there is a pretty long discussion about Julia, and Castruccio immediately starts talking about his wife, and he reveals certain things which are public knowledge. Okay, so we'll see what they are. So Castruccio's wife, Julia, can persuade, he says she can persuade brave men, okay, to who are ready for war, to stop war, okay. That is brave men who are ready for war, okay, who are ready to fight each other, to stop fighting. Now, what is the now this is revealed by Castruccio, okay, to stop fighting. And in fact, Ferdinand wonders. He says, okay, no, I mean, Castruccio does not say this. This comment is made by the Duke. Okay, so I heard that Julia can persuade brave men to stop fighting. She's that good or what? That's the question that he asks. And then he says, if such a thing happens, then surgeons will be out of job. The surgeons in the city, the surgeons will not have any job to do. Will not have a job to do, which means that, I mean, what job will they have? When these people fight, there will be wounds. Only if they fight, there will be wounds, and they'll have to stitch those. They'll have to stitch those wounds. When there is no fighting, no wounds. Okay, so this is what the Duke Ferdinand says, and Castruccio, like a typical courtier, he says, yeah. He, like a typical junior, like a typical person trying to agree with his superior. He says, yeah. Of course, that's true. Okay, of course, but there is a subtle indication that Julia and Castruccio's relationship is not normal, and that Julia is having relationship with other men also. So if there is no fighting, there won't be any wounds. There are no wounds. So the surgeons would be out of job. And another thing is, so the indication is that Julia has an active social life. She is, so that is the, and it's also indicated, I'm giving this information now, of course, it will be revealed again in the play. This particular thing is that Julia is the cardinal's mistress. Now, you may be wondering how the cardinal, he's supposed to follow celibacy. The cardinal's mistress. Okay, so the all these things are said in a very mocking tone, in a very in a very teasing tone to Castruccio. Okay, and then the subject moves away from Julia to a horse, and there is something that happens, and which shows what kind of a person the Duke is. Obvious that Castruccio is embarrassed that the subject matter is his wife Julia, and there are so many things which are common knowledge about his relationship with his wife and about Julia's active social life. So this is what happens, and then Castruccio says, "How do you like, my Spanish genet?" Okay, a Spanish genet is a small horse. Okay, now what is the Spanish genet? It's a small horse. Okay, it's not a very, but which is very quick in it runs very quickly. That is, it's known for its speed. Okay, and then the Duke makes some comment, and the Duke comments about the horse, and what happens is the other two people who are present there, Rodrigo and Grisolan. Okay, Rodrigo and Grisolan find it funny and they laugh, and immediately the Duke is angry that they have laughed. He makes a comment on it. He comments on this horse, and Rodrigo and Grisolan find it funny and they laugh, and immediately the Duke is angry. The Duke is angry as to why they are laughing without any. I mean, what is the purpose of this laughter? Why are you laughing? That's the okay. So he says, "Look, you are my courtiers. Okay, you are my courtiers, and you should know when to laugh and when not to laugh. Okay, so ultimately, why? I mean, you are my." So he says, I'll just read this out. "You are my courtiers and should be my touchwood. Take fire when I give fire. Laugh when I laugh, where the subject never so witty." So he says, look, what is so funny about this that you are laughing? So you are my courtiers and you should know when to laugh. Now, the problem is, and you should know when to laugh. Now, the problem is this, people, this is not about laughter. This is about power play. The Duke wants to establish that, look, when I give you the instruction to laugh, you laugh. Okay? Otherwise, you don't. Okay? So you are my courtiers and you should know when to laugh and when to cry and when to. So this is power play. And what happens here is, and then he says, now when will you laugh? You can laugh at the fool. Okay? A fool is a comedian. You can laugh at the fool. Here, the fool does not mean a person who is a fool, but a person who plays the fool in the court. So there will be, in each court, there will be a fool, a jester, okay, a comedian who will come and crack jokes and, and make the court laugh. Okay, or comic relief kaga. Okay, so, and then Castruccio immediately, he says, look, no, sir. Actually, I have a fool in my court. Castruccio says, I have a fool in my court whom my wife cannot tolerate. I don't know why Castruccio is doing this mistake. of mentioning his wife again and again. Anyway, people are mocking him. The Duke is mocking him. So why should he? He could have stopped discussing that. Okay. So he says, my wife Julia cannot tolerate the fool. Sometimes, see, you can be funny, but the problem is you should be funny only when the person is willing to listen to you. What if you crack a joke and that person is not in a good mood and takes offense? So this is what has happened here. Here also, Julia cannot tolerate the fool because of that, and immediately, what starts off as a comment about Castruccio's horse, Rodrigo and Grisolan find it funny and they laugh. The Duke is angry that they are laughing. And he says, you are my courtiers and you should know when to laugh. And not only that, this is a power play that the Duke plays. The power play is that, look, I am the Duke and it's better you know when to laugh and when not to. Of course, it's permissible to laugh at the fool. It's better you laugh at the fool because that fool is there to entertain you. So this is what happens here. And unfortunately, I would say unfortunately, Castruccio, mentions Julia, his fool, and then he mentions his wife Julia, whom he says cannot tolerate the fool. Okay, so and then the subject moves on, the topic moves on to something else. Okay, so the topic moves on to something else. The subject moves on to something else, and the Duke addresses Lord Silvio, and he says, I will be visiting you, Lord Silvio, in Milan. So Lord Silvio is from Milan, and he says, I'll come and visit you. Duke Ferdinand says, okay. Now you may be asking whether these people are, I will visit you. And he welcomes him. He says, sir, you're always welcome. I will visit you in Milan. And I'd like to visit you. Silvio welcomes him. Silvio says, you are always welcome. Okay. Now, the point is this. What are these four people? Castruccio, Silvio, Rodrigo, and Grisolan. What are they? They are actually lords, but they occupy a position less than that of Duke. That's why he calls them his courtiers. Okay. So, all right. Now, then Ferdinand, then the Duke asks Antonio about, now that Antonio has come back from France, he says, how is the horsemanship in France? Okay. That is, how do they, what do you mean by horsemanship? What do you mean by horsemanship? That is, how do they ride horses in France? How is the technique there? And French people were known in medieval France. They were very well known for their skills in horse riding. So this is horsemanship, by which we mean horse riding. Okay. But here horse riding does not mean just for pleasure. It means in war. Okay. And then he says, Antonio says that this is again, you can note them down. They are very famous. Antonio says, sir, the horsemanship is what makes a prince, a man. Okay, makes a person a man. Okay, nobly, my lord, as sort of the Grecian horse issued many famous princes. If you want a prince, you should teach a prince horsemanship. So out of brave horsemanship arise the first sparks of growing resolution that raise the mind to noble action. Okay, so horsemanship is important because horsemanship is what gives you, how good horsemanship will make good princes. Okay, so a good prince should have good horse riding skills. So this is what he says, and so the Duke appreciates this comment, and what happens is we see some other people coming in. He appreciates Antonio's comment. He's because he says something which is very appropriate. A person who knows, or a person who's taught skills in horse riding will be a good prince. Okay, and in fact, the other thing is also true. Princes should be taught horse riding skills. So, I mean, sort of, this can be called as one scene inside Act 1, Scene 2. We see that the Duchess, the Cardinal, Cariola, and Julia enter. And we'll see who these characters are probably in the next video. But in this video, this is what we saw. So Act 1, Scene 2 is not yet over. So people, this is what we saw in this video. We are looking at Act 1, Scene 2 of the Duchess of Malfi. And we saw that Antonio and Delio are continued to talk, and we are introduced to some more characters inside the play. Castruccio, Silvio, Rodrigo, and Grisolan, who are lords, okay, who are actually lords and who come under the Duke Ferdinand, who is the Duke of Calabria. Calabria is in southern Italy. And they talk about a jousting event, and he asks about a jousting event, and Antonio, who participated in the event, took the ring the maximum number of times. Well, and he says Antonio is present there. Okay, so he this is what he says: give him the jewel, and then the topic goes on to to war. And Castruccio makes some comment about war and says, no, you should not be directly involved because you're a duke. And the Duke is irritated by this comment. And he says, look, if I'm going to delegate to war and going to battle, then it's better I delegate sleeping and eating also. So, which actually this delegation you have done. You have given your wife to someone else. That's what he means. Actually, that's a very bad comment, but that's what he means. And unfortunately, Castruccio's wife Julia is leading a very active social life, and comments about her are made which are not in very good taste. But anyway, it's also revealed that Julia has a very close relationship with the cardinal because she is the cardinal's mistress. And what happens is the topic moves on to Castruccio's horse, a Spanish genet. And then what happens is the Duke makes a comment, and immediately Rodrigo and Grisolan laugh. The Duke is unhappy about these people laughing. And then there is a sort of a power play there where he says, look, you should not laugh unnecessarily. You should laugh only at the fool who is in court. And then again, there is a comment about the fool. And the topic again changes to, the Duke says, I'll visit you, Lord Silvio. And Lord Silvio welcomes him. And he asks about horsemanship in France. Okay, how is the horsemanship in France? Horse riding skills in France. And Antonio says that that good horsemanship produces good princes. Okay, so this is the end of one scene. Okay, this is end of I would say end of video 2. Okay, so end of one scene in Act 1, Scene 2. In the next video, of course, the action is continuous. So I'm just breaking it here so that you can, you will be able to, there are a lot of characters who are introduced. We'll be looking at that. The Duchess enters now. So we'll be looking at that in the next video. So thanks a lot for patiently listening to this video. Watch this video and then please look forward to the next video. Thank you. Best of luck.